बातचीत करने के लिए हमारे साथ मैनेजमेंट अवेलेबल है। मैं आपका परिचय करा दूं, सीएमडी है कुनामित बिचा साहब और सीएफओ आरएम सुब्रमण्यम जी। सर बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका सीएनबीसी आवाज पर। और बहुत सिंपली पहले मेरे दर्शकों को ये समझाइए कि ये एवलॉन टेक्नोलॉजीज क्या करती है, कंपनी काम क्या करती है।
दोस्तों, अगर आप बाजार में अपना पैसा इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हैं तो अभी जुड़े एंजल ब्रोकिंग के साथ में, क्योंकि यहां आपको मिलती है एक अच्छी एडवाइस और भरोसेमंद सर्विस, और यहां अकाउंट ओपन करना भी है बिल्कुल फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट। तो आज ही जुड़े एंजल ब्रोकिंग के साथ में। अकाउंट ओपनिंग लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में है, आज ही अपना अकाउंट ओपन कराएं।
So Avalon Technologies started in 96 in the US. 99 we started our first factories. The vision was to do manufacturing in India. So in those days, 20 years back, we tried to start manufacturing, electronic manufacturing in India. Today, our biggest market is in clean energy. We do parts for solar, hydrogen, and EVs. The second largest is mobility, where we make parts like signaling systems for the railways, parts inside planes, seating, lighting, fire detection. And a large part also is in industrials of different types. So what we do is a complete box build or complete system build, where our factories not only make the PCBs, we make our own sheet metal, our own plastics, our own machining. So the final product comes from our different factories and finally assembled together. Today, we believe after 20 years, 22 years of doing this, the inflection point of Make in India is truly happening. And not only for Avalon, but for the whole industry, we will see a huge growth potential in the future years to come. And we want to lead that from front.
Okay. विजय सर, आपका ये जो इशू है, इसका ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? ये फंड क्यों रेस करना चाहते हैं आप?
Maybe I can answer that.
Sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah, basically in terms of the overall rationale, I like to tell you first. Okay, as a company, we are a profitable company, and if you're going to grow at say 10 to 15%, we should be able to fund ourselves. But anything growth beyond that, we will require external fund infusion. And the primary purpose of the IPO itself is to make sure this growth is fully funded. As Bichas have explained, we are seeing a pivoting moment, an inflection point in terms of the industry and Avalon specifically. We want to make sure we use this opportunity, pivot ourselves into the next orbit, and then grow. This is a time for India and Avalon as well. So that is the primary purpose in terms of the primary fundraise. Out of the 320 crores, which is the primary fundraise, we are planning to use about 145 crores for prepayment of debt, and the balance being in working capital and general corporate purpose. And in the idea about using the debt repayment is also to make sure the balance sheet is strengthened. And as we move along, we can re-leverage in terms of growing, okay, so that the growth is fully funded. That's the primary purpose of what we're doing.
Sir, what is the net debt as of now?
Sorry?
What is the level of net debt as of now?
Net debt, I can answer that. November 22, as of November 22, the net debt is about 300 crores. And with this, it should come down to 50%. And with the cash we're getting generated in terms of moving forward, we expect the debt levels to come down to about 50 to 75% from as of what is today. And that should also lead to interest cost saving, which should add to the PBT.
ओके मिस्टर बिछा, आप ये कह रहे हैं कि 145 करोड़ आप डेट में डालेंगे, बाकी आप वर्किंग कैपिटल के लिए यूज़ करेंगे। मुझे ये बताइए कि आपकी वर्किंग कैपिटल की पिक्चर कैसी है और डेट डेज कितने हैं जिसमें आपका वर्किंग कैपिटल घूमता है?
So we have 75 days in payables and 75 days in receivable. On net average of inventory we carry is around 90 to 120 days. Today is a little bit higher because of the component and supply chain issues, but that is what we will be maintaining going forward.
So the cost is going on. बहुत लागत बढ़ रही है चिप के भी वजह से भी और दूसरी चीज़ों सप्लाई चेन की वजह से भी, और आपकी डिपेंडेंसी कुछ क्लाइंट तक है, बहुत कंसंट्रेटेड लगती है मुझे। ये आप मुझे एक्सप्लेन करेंगे कि आपका इन्वेंट्री लेवल क्या है, जिससे कि मैं ये समझ सकूं कि आपकी जो वर्किंग कैपिटल वो कैसे घूमेगी कंसीडरिंग द कॉस्ट?
Maybe I can try and answer that.
Sure, sir.
That's okay. Today, our inventory is about 127 days in terms of days of sales. As our MD said, today is slightly elevated because of the chip shortage. But if you look at on a steady state basis, we used to operate about 60 to 90 days. So in the long run, we will reach the steady state. It will take about 12 to 18 months to reach that. We are seeing the early signs of easing of situation in terms of component. Already this happened in the B2C space. It will happen in B2B space as well moving forward. And once it happens, we should get back to our steady state, which is about 60 to 90 days of net working capital cycle.
Okay, so your can you tell me the revenue breakup for geographically?
दोस्तों, अगर आप बाजार में अपना पैसा इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हैं तो अभी जुड़े एंजल ब्रोकिंग के साथ में, क्योंकि यहाँ आपको मिलती है एक अच्छी एडवाइस और भरोसेमंद सर्विस, और यहाँ अकाउंट ओपन करना भी है बिल्कुल फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट। तो आज ही जुड़े एंजल ब्रोकिंग के साथ में। अकाउंट ओपनिंग लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में है, आज ही अपना अकाउंट ओपन कराएं।
कहाँ से कितना रेवेन्यू आता है आपका?
So in terms of revenue breakup, 62% of our market is in US market, and the balance 38% is India and other small geographies, which is there all put together. And production wise, 80% of production happens in India, and the balance 20% happens in US for us.
So 80% प्रोडक्शन आपका इंडिया में होता है, 20% यूएस में, और आप इसके लिए जो इंपोर्ट करके कुछ सामान लाते हैं वो यूएस, सिंगापुर और चाइना से, राइट सर?
Correct.
So dependency on these three countries is posing us some kind of risk?
No, see, if you look at the overall supply chain in electronics, it's always global. A lot of it is not made in India. But in our case, we make a lot more in India with the sheet metal, with the cables, with the plastic. All that is done with Indian raw material. But there is, so we are well spread out. A lot of parts come from US, come from China, come from Japan. So anybody doing it anywhere in the world, you're going to have a global supply chain for electronics. You cannot have a country-specific supply chain.
Okay, despite कि आप मेक इन इंडिया पे बहुत फोकस करें, लेकिन फिर भी डिपेंडेंसी कहीं ना कहीं बाहर रहेगी। अच्छा विजय साहब, मुझे ये बताइए कि कितना मार्जिन आप कमांड करते हैं, क्योंकि आप B2C में नहीं है, मैं कह सकता हूँ कि आप B2B सेगमेंट में बेसिकली कितना मार्जिन आप कमांड करते हैं?
So historically, we are around 11 to 12% EBITDA margins, and we look for how to increase the margin into the future. There are different ways we feel it can, and as of today, it's been very consistent at these rates for even through the COVID as well as through the supply chain shortages. A lot of our cost increases are given back to the customer as per contract. So the commodity changes as well as the IC price increases are usually passed back to the customer.
You pass on to customer. एक चीज़ मुझे आप समझाइए, क्योंकि दो तीन चीज़ें मैंने आपसे पूछी हैं। आप इंटरप्राइज सॉल्यूशन प्रोवाइड करते हैं वेरियस इंडस्ट्रीज़ को, जहाँ पे आप 10, 11, 12% का मैक्सिमम मार्जिन कमांड करते हैं, और ये एंटरप्राइज सॉल्यूशन है तो इसलिए B2B सेगमेंट में मैं लेके चल रहा हूँ, लेकिन आप वैल्यूएशन कमांड करना चाहते हैं रिटेल के जैसा, वाई सर?
So if you look at that with our peers, we are actually lower than our peers in the valuation looking forward. Okay, so I believe it is what the market will justify it, but it's even a lot of our peers who are in the B2B space have much higher valuation than what we are doing.
ओके अच्छा विजय साहब, थोड़ा सा स्केलेबिलिटी का अपना प्लान बताइए, कैसे स्केल अप करेंगे आप अपने बिजनेस को और बड़ा, क्योंकि बहुत बड़ा मार्केट तो बहुत बड़ा है, आप उसमें अपने आप को कैसे प्लेस करेंगे? व्हाट आर द ट्रिगर्स फॉर द नेक्स्ट ग्रोथ लेवल?
So we are seeing, we have never seen this kind of activity in 22 years of doing this in India. We are seeing not only orders, we are seeing customer visits, customer audits, where we'll see a lot more coming in. So we are operating around 60 to 65% of our capacity today. And we believe there's enough leverage there to go up to 80-85% in the near term. Apart from that, we also have acquired a 150,000 square feet facility, which will come into being end of this year. In another 6 months, we should be ready with the facility. With these two, I think we are very much covered for the next 3 years.
ओके मिस्टर सुब्रमण्यम, एक क्वेश्चन आपसे और है, आप स्केल अप प्लान में वैल्यू पे ज़्यादा फोकस करेंगे कि कितना वैल्यू आप जनरेट करते हैं, रादर कि आप बहुत बड़ा वॉल्यूम जनरेट करें, राइट सर? सो यहाँ पे फिर प्राइसिंग और मार्जिन इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है, वो कैसे मैनेज होगी?
Just to answer your question, is the way it works is we are a B2B enterprise space, and what we are doing is a mission critical products. Okay, Pricing is a criteria, but it's not the only criteria. Capability and in terms of delivery and how we are able to do this of resume, all of them becomes important or equally important criteria. And we are well placed to do that, point number one. Point number two, with geopolitics and what you call products moving out of China, there's a huge growth potential, and that's what we are operating on. If you look at the past, we have continued to operate irrespective of our operating capacity utilization. We have always maintained our margins, and moving forward as well, we will make sure our pricing takes care of the margins. What can happen over us if a capacity utilization does go up, there is an operating leverage impact which can happen, and that can push up the margins, but that's more for the future. Today, we will always ensure we do get into a particular market and the customer at the right margins and make sufficient margin so that we don't lose the margins at any point in time.
Okay, Mr. Vicha, अगर हम numbers के through जाए, we see the numbers FY22.
दोस्तों, अगर आप बाजार में अपना पैसा इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हैं तो अभी जुड़े एंजल ब्रोकिंग के साथ में, क्योंकि यहाँ आपको मिलती है एक अच्छी एडवाइस और भरोसेमंद सर्विस, और यहाँ अकाउंट ओपन करना भी है बिल्कुल फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट। तो आज ही जुड़े एंजल ब्रोकिंग के साथ में, अकाउंट ओपनिंग लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में है, आज ही अपना अकाउंट ओपन कराएं।
Was very better, extraordinary better. But if we come to the FY23, which yet to almost complete, but yet to complete it in your balance sheet, why FY22 was extraordinary? FY21 was equal, 20 was equal, but FY20 was sharp jump. Why?
Maybe I can. It was where the really operating leverage impact happened. Number one, so the top line grew at 22% in terms of the top line. Number one. And number two, at the PAT level, you will see an extraordinary jump of 8%, but there's an extraordinary item. If you remove the exceptional item, it's about 6%. But even at the 6%, our PAT doubled up, and that is what I call as operating leverage impact. And hopefully that is what should play out as we get higher, huge order book, and we are able to push through a larger throughput using the existing capacity. That's what we are hoping to do that in the future.
Okay, so Mr. Bichan, Subramaniam sir, बहुत शुक्रिया हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए, and best wishes for your good listing and good response. Avalon Technologies एक critical electronic segment में है जो OEMs के तौर पे है, और कंपनी का लगातार बिजनेस एक्सपैंड हो रहा है, और जैसा अभी हमें समझा रहे थे विजय साहब और सुब्रमण्यम जी कि बहुत ही क्रिटिकल मास को डील करते हैं, B2B सेगमेंट में खास तौर पे है, इसलिए काफ़ी टेक्निकली एडवांस बिजनेस है जिसको उसी नज़रिए से देखना चाहिए। वैल्यूएशन के फ्रंट पर क्या एक्सपर्ट कह रहे हैं कि काफ़ी हायर साइड में ले लिया है, तो शायद आगे 2-3 साल की डिस्काउंटिंग करके ये चल रहे होंगे। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सर हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए। आज से इशू खुला हुआ है, 2 दिन तक और खुला रहेगा ये। चलिए छोटा सा एक ब्रेक लेंगे यहाँ पे।